Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Yevamos Daf Nun Vav. We begin on the second lines from the top of the Amid. Echad ha'ma'are, v'echad ha'goymer kana. The Mishnah goes on to explain that, unlike your typical Kiddushin, which requires consent, willingness, da'as, to make that kinyan, Yibum is entirely different. It's a different type of bond. It's min hashamayim. Isha hiknu loy min hashamayim, as the Gemara Kiddushin of Beis and Beis says. And therefore it follows different types of guidelines. Even b'shoigig, ba'oines, the kinyan is still effective. Question is, to what extent? My kana. When the Mishnah says that all these different variations work, and you are kaina the Yevama, to what extent? Rava Amar kana lakoil, pertaining to all halachis between husband and wife. He'll be yerisher, she'll have her truma. If he's a kain, he could become tamit. All the halachis, hafaras nedarim, she's a regular wife, no different. Ushmol Amar loikana, ela l'dvarim ha'amurim beparsha. Shmuel says, look, you haven't really activated a proper kinyan, which can really make her your wife. At most, you did something which conforms to the Yibum process. And therefore, says Shmuel, you know what happens? You activate Yibum aspects of that marriage. For instance, Lirash b'nichsei achiv. This fellow now takes over the estate of his departed brother. Because it says, Yochim al Shem Achav, in the parsha of Yibum. You've activated the parsha of Yibum, nothing more. There's no longer a din for Yibum. So that's the sheet of Shmuel. You end right there. You want to have more? She wants to have your truma if you're a kain. You want to get her Yerusha, etc. You need a proper kinyan. Says the Gemara, let's analyze the circumstance of the machlekes. What are they talking about? Minan nesuin. If she became a Yevama after having been married to Reuven passes away, she's a Yevama, in which case she was a proper wife to Reuven. L'divrei hakoil achla, all agree at this point, if she's a Yevama and this fellow, the Yavam, now takes over, even if it's a so-called a deficient kinyan, it's just b'shoigig, it's not on purpose, not with a proper masa, proper das. All agree, even Shmuel agrees she can have his truma, because bottom line is the havas ka'achla mi'ikar, because she was already eating truma with her first husband, meaning she was already fully connected to him, fully married. The yavam, in effect, is just taking over what was already there. So even a bia b'shoigig works. In this case, the yibum power activates, or I should say, makes a continuity. It helps him continue and take over what was there before. She's a full-fledged wife. The question is if she was just engaged. She only had a kiddushin with her first husband, and then he passes away. Erisin is not a proper marriage. They're not truly connected. There's no din of Yerusha, of Tumma and Truma. So now the Yavam comes along and does his incomplete kinyan, so to speak. He does a kinyan b'shoigig. What happens now? Does he acquire her fully or not? That's the machlekes. Rav Amar Eicheles. Rav says even in this case, she gets her truma from him. So if he's a kohen, he can feed her truma. The Rabbi Rachmana bia shoigig kemezid. The pasuk allows this type of bia. Yibum accommodates all these various types of interactions. And now she's his wife. Ushmol Amar, no. Ki Rabbi Rachmana. Sure. The Torah refers to all these variations, but that's only l'ukmi b'makim Baal. To put him in the stead of the Baal, to take over the status which was already there by her previous husband. If she was already married, she was already having this truma, she can continue to do so even by the Yavam. The Maasa Yibum, as incomplete as it is, it generates Yibum, it activates the powers of Yibum, and allows him to take over what was already there. But to put him higher than the original husband, La Lumi Bibal? Of course not, Loy, that you can't do. That's Shmuel's approach. So of course if you do a proper kinyan, with awareness, with das, of course everybody's maida. She's his wife. And she gets all the privileges of a married woman. And so does he. Question is if it was not done that way. It was b'shoigig, it was ba'inus, it was in all these cases. Sure, it counts for yibam. So if she was already married to husband number one, this allows him to take over that status. She was not married to husband number one, only an arusa. And now he does this sort of deficient type of Maasa Kinyan. Says Shmuel, you can only activate the Yibam related elements of this Kinyan. But no more. And Rab says no. Yibam is Yibam is Yibam. She's his wife. And Shmuel is now going to follow his own personal shita stated elsewhere. The Omar of Nachman Omar Shmuel, Kol Sha'abal Ma'achel. In a case where her former husband would feed her truma, i.e., she was married to him. In this case, Yavam Ma'achel. The Yavam as well can feed her, irrespective of how he acquired her, whether it be as shogeg or it doesn't matter, because he's just taking over what was already there. But in the case where she was just engaged to Reuven and was not yet being fed truma by him, and now the Yavam does an incomplete type of masa, Yavam Einim Machel, he doesn't feed her as well, you can't consider him higher and superior to the first husband through this incomplete masa kinyan. Here comes a kasha on Shmuel, Meisvei, Bas Yisrael, Pikachas. You have a healthy Jewish girl, Shenis Arsel Kohen Pikech, got engaged with a healthy Kohen, mentally healthy. So as we spoke, an Arusa will not eat Truma. By the way, the Gemara, Rashi brings later that the din is only midrabanan, because Minat Torah, even an Arusa can eat Truma. But the Rabbanan were concerned that if we allow that to happen, she might, since she's still home at her parents' home, she might take the Truma that her fiancé gives her, the Arus gives her, and feed it to her brothers and sisters who are not Kayan, who are not allowed to take part in that Truma. So we say she can't really have Truma until she's married and she enters his, she comes and lives with him. That takes away the chashash that she'll feed her siblings. So we have a Bas Yisrael engaged to a Kayan. At this point, no Truma, right? By the time he got around to doing that marriage, he became a cherish, deaf, mute, and he does not have a koyach, doesn't have the power to affect the kinyan. Eina ichalas. She can't have his truma. Rashi explains. Technically, she's mutter b'truma, because even when she was just arusa, she was mutter. And in this case, where she's actually living with him, who cares if he's a cherish? She's living with him. It's after marriage. She's no longer feeding her siblings. But the reason why we don't allow it, it's a gzeira. Because next time, we might allow it even when the Kiddushin, the first phase, was conducted in a cherish circumstance, which of course doesn't work. A cherish can't make a kinyan. Therefore we say, Nisun of a cherish can't grant her truma eating privileges. Okay, so that's the first halach. Ein eichelas. Meis. Her husband passes away at this point. V'nafla lifnei yavam cheresh. And she's now standing in front of his brother, who happens to be a cheresh as well. Eichelas. She can now eat truma. Ubazu Yafe Koyach HaYavam Mikoyach HaBaal. Why do we allow the Yavam to feed her? Because the Yavam, in a way, is stronger than the Baal. Yafe Koyach HaYavam Mikoyach HaBaal. Yavam is more powerful. Rashi explains. We learned in the Mishnah, even a Bia Vishoigig, Va'oines, without Kavanah L'Shem Kinyan, without Kavanah L'Shem Mitzvah, works for Yibam. Therefore, a Yavam, who happens to be a Cherish, counts as well. And now he can feed her the Truma, which is amazing. She couldn't have Truma by her husband because he was a Cherish. She could have it by the Yavam. That's the answer, because his Kinyan, the Kinyan Yibam, works differently. It's Min HaShamayim, it works differently, and therefore she's considered his full-fledged wife. Here comes the Kasha on Shmuel. Bishlam l'Rav Nicha, according to Rav, it works perfectly well, because according to Rav, even this type of deficient Kinyan can activate Truma privileges. Elu l'Shmuel Kasha, but according to Shmuel, it shouldn't work. Because remember, she wasn't eating Truma by her husband. And now she can eat. According to Shmuel, that doesn't work. If she would have been eating Truma by her husband, of course, Shmuel agrees, the Yavam can just take over that situation, even with a deficient bia, but not in a case where she wasn't eating Truma until now. Amalach Shmuel responds, let's revise the brisa as follows. She was a pikachas, mentally stable. She went ahead and got engaged to a kohen, who likewise was perfectly fine. And the brisa continues. By the time he got around to marriage, he became a cherish. There's no achilas truma. But then the brisa adds one more case. Konas he married and then became a cherish. Once she started eating, she continues eating. Okay, that's good. Because at the point of Nisuin, he was healthy. And now the Brisa says, Meis, V'naflo, V'nayavam. He passed away and she's presented to a Yavam, who happens to be a Cherish as well. Oicheles, she may continue eating Truma. And this works well even according to Shmuel, because she was already eating Truma beforehand. He's just taking over that status. Now, if that's the case, why does the Brisa say, well, in this case we see that the Yavam is more powerful than the husband? Umay bezu. What do you mean? The husband was also a cherish and was also feeding her. The answer is the ilu baal cherish miikara lo yecheles. The Brisa is highlighting, referring to a different case. Theoretically, if the baal would have been a cherish initially, prior to marriage, lo yecheles, she can't eat, as we explained before. You can't go into a marriage with a cherish and start eating. This is a gzeira, right? Like we mentioned. Vilu yavam cherish miikara achla. But if it's a yavam who's a cherish from the get-go, such as in this case, since she was already eating by her husband, then she gets transferred to the yavam who's right now a cherish. At the initial point of marriage, she can eat. And here we have an element of superiority that we find by the yavam over the husband. A yavam can actually feed his yivama truma, even though she came into his rishus when he was already a cherish. A baal can't do that. And the answer is because the yavam is merely sort of taking over from the baal who was already feeding him. So according to this version of the Gemara, and all these incomplete kinyanim, bias shoigig, aynes, right, of a yivama, what happens? The kinyan works, but to what extent? How far? How effective is it? Well, if she was already married to her husband, and then he passes away, that gets transferred to the yavam, even with this deficient interaction, because he's simply taking over what was already there. If she was only an arusa, that's a machlekes. Rav says, here as well, yibum is yibum. Shmuel says no. Sure, yibum is yibum, it only activates the yibum-oriented aspects of their life. Only those things mentioned in the parsha of Yibum. He's Yerush, his brother's Nechasim, she's Potter from Yibum, etc. But nothing more. That's version number 1. Version number 2, back to the case of a deficient kinyan. She was coming off Erison. She was only engaged to Reuven, he passed away, and she's coming to Shimon as a Yevama. And he does this shoygeg, einus type of interaction. Divrei hakoil loy achla, all agree, even Shmuel agrees, there's no truma to be eaten because the loy achla b'chahi baal, she wasn't having truma with her first husband. And therefore, Yavam can't stand higher than that, unless he does a proper kinyan. At most, he's just taking over. Fine, take over what was there. But no more than that. The question is if she's coming off her marriage. Rav Amar Echeles. Here Rav says, yeah, it's a complete kinyan. She can have his truma. Keep in mind, she was already eating truma. He's just taking it over. No. Even in this case, where she's coming from Nisuin, this incomplete, deficient kinyan would not allow her to have truma. Ki Rabbi Rachmana bia shoygig kemezid. When the Torah considers a bia of a shoygig like a mezid, that's only ledvarim or murim parsha pertaining to those elements mentioned in the parsha of Yibum. It's a Yibum oriented type of kinyan, avalukol mililoy, but doesn't pertain to any other privileges. So according to version number 2, Machmer. If she's coming off of Erison, all agree it doesn't work. From Nisuin, we have a machlekes. And Shmuel holds, it doesn't work. V'amar of Nachman, Amar Shmuel. Didn't Shmuel himself tell us elsewhere? So before we used it as a raya, now we're going to have it as a kasha. Kol sha'abal machal yavam machal. A situation where the husband fed her truma, i.e. he was married. Yavam can do so as well, even with a deficient interaction. And here Shmuel says not so. Ema, let's revise that statement. We're speaking about a proper bia. Kol bia sha'abal machal ba. A proper bia done by your husband, that type of bia, yeah, yava machal ba, the same bia which allows the husband to feed her, meaning a proper bia with chuppah. Likewise, the yavam can use that type of interaction to feed her as well. With a das kinyan, a proper interaction, as opposed to a deficient bia. V'chol bia she'ena baal machal ba, but otherwise, if it's a deficient bia, without kinyan, without das, eina yavam machal ba, the yavam can't use that either. Meisvei, here comes another kasha from that brayso. Where we learn, Bas Yisrael pikachas. Shenis ars l'koyin pikech. Right? The Bas Yisrael healthy, Koyin healthy, they got engaged. By the time the wedding came around, he became a cherish. Eina Echeles is no trum. Meis v'nafel from the Yavam. He dies and she goes to the Yavam, who happens to be a cherish as well. Oicheles, she can have her truma. Ubazu yafe koyach yavam mikoyach baal. Here we have a case where the Yavam stands higher, is more powerful than the Baal. End quote. Now, you see, in the previous Gemara, we use this brayso as a kasha on Shmuel. Shmuel was the machmer, and here we see the Yavam is stronger than the Baal. He can actually feed her where the Baal couldn't. And the Gemara answered, well, no, let's revise the brayso. Actually, we're speaking that he was a pikeach when she married him, and then he became a cherish. So she was already entitled to truma, and then she got transferred to the Yavam. He can take over what was already there. Now, in version number 2, Rav is sort of taking the place of Shmuel. Right? We substituted Shmuel for Rav. Rav is the one that holds that coming off a Nesuin allows the Yavam to sort of take over. And Shmuel holds, even in that case, you don't. Right? So Rav is sort of filled the place of Shmuel in this Gemara. So Bishlam Rav Metaretz Kedateretz Miikara. So Rav wouldn't have a kasha from this brayso. He simply answers it. He sort of tinkers with the brayso like Shmuel did before. We revised the case. We're speaking that she was already married to him when he was healthy, and then she started eating the truma. Then he became a cherish, and then there was a yibum. So he takes over. Because if you're being miyav min hanesuin, it works. Elul Shmuel kasha, but according to Shmuel, we're against the wall because according to the second version of the Gemara, Shmuel never allows this type of deficient masa bia to activate any achilas truma privileges, irrespective of whether she's coming off of marriage or erison. There's no way to reconcile this brayso according to Shmuel kasha. Indeed, we leave it unresolved. Okay, so bottom line is, in all these types of biyos that are without proper das kinyan, if it's shoigig, if it's oines, etc., what happens? According to version 1 of the Gemara, if it's min hanesuin, all agree it's fine. If it's min ha'erisin, Rav says it's fine, and Shmuel says it only works with respect to yibum-oriented aspects. In version number 2 of Machmer, min ha'erisin, all agree it doesn't work except for yibum halachis, for yibum halachis, and if it's min hanesuin, Shmuel still says it doesn't work except for yibum-oriented aspects, and Rav says it works for everything. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Brisa about this Bas Yisrael Pikachas, Shinas Arsel L'Koyin Pikeach, healthy girl, engaged to a healthy koyin. By the time he got around to marrying, he became a cherish. She cannot go ahead and have his truma. So she's a Bas Yisrael, she's marrying a koyin, she cannot have his truma. Right? As we explained earlier, really Minat Torah, an Arusa is entitled. Midrabanan were concerned about sharing with her siblings, so until marriage, don't have his truma. Although in this case she's already married, but Geyser concerned that this might lead to eating truma even when getting engaged to a cherish. If we allow marriage with a cherish, we might apply the same to when she got engaged to a cherish and have his truma, which of course is asa because a cherish doesn't have the koyach to make it kinyan, and therefore it's asa. Noilad lo ben, suppose, Mazel Tov, there's a son who's a kohen, right? Oicheles, she's allowed to eat truma because of her son. We have a pasuk, right, that when a Bas Yisrael marries a kohen, even if her husband passes away, she can continue eating truma as long as the son's around. He sort of, keeps the tradition going. So Noilad ben Oicheles, she can have the truma, even though the husband's not around, even though the husband's not able to feed her, he's a cherish, but the son can feed her, so to speak. Meisa ben, but let's say the son's gone, what happens now? Rabbi Nosson Omer Oicheles, she can continue eating. V'chacham Omer Heina Oicheles, she may not. My time of the Rabbi Nosson, what's Pshat Rabbi Nosson? Husband couldn't feed her, and Shada who fed her is no longer here. Amar Rabba, look, she started eating. Once you start, you don't stop. Amali Abaye. If that's the case, you start, you don't stop. Bas Yisrael, Shenisas L'Koyin. A regular Bas Yisrael marries a kohen. Umeisle. And he passes away. Teichel? Does she continue eating? Shekvar Achla because she started eating? Of course not. It's dependent upon his existence, right? Ella given the meisle. Rather, once he passes away, Pakale Kedusha say mina. The Kedusha transferred from him to her dissipates. He was the reason for her truma. He's no longer here. Hachanami here as well with the son. Given the mesle, once the son passes on, Paka Kedusha say mina. His Kedusha dissipates. She no longer benefits from his presence. How can you say once you eat, you continue eating? Elam Rav Yosef Nara. Let me explain to you Rav Nosson's sheet. Kasavar ben Nosson, he holds Nesui Cherish Ma'achilin Betruma. There's a fundamental machlokes here between Rav Nosson and the Chachamim. As we explained, the Chachamim hold that all the Minat Torah she should be eating, and really she's already married, there isn't really a concern about feeding her siblings, but there's a gzera. If we allow the Nisun of a Cherish to have weight, we might attribute value to the Kedushin of a Cherish, which of course you can't, because he cannot do a Kedushin. Rabbi Nosson disagrees with that gzera. Straight to the point. He holds that once you marry, even if it's a Cherish, he says the Kedushin was valid, because he was healthy at that point, and once you're living with him, there's no concern of feeding your siblings, you can go ahead and eat the Truma. Irrespective of the presence of a son or not. The husband himself has the ability to feed you. Because Rabbi Nosson, Nesui Cherish Machil Betruma. Marriage to a Cherish activates Truma eating privileges. We don't say, well, it might confuse the marriage to a Cherish to the Kedushin of a Cherish. Amali Abaye. If that's the reason, then skip the child. Why discuss a child? Why even mention the child factor? She's eating because of the husband. Mishum Rabbanon. is to point out that according to the Rabbanan, although she can't eat on account of her husband, but she could on account of the child. That's why we mentioned the son. But then the structure in the Bryce is problematic. V'lifleg Rabbi Nosson alaya bereisha. You see, Rabbi Nosson only comes in after we discuss the child. He should have stepped in right away. Right away when we mentioned the halacha. Tanakama says she can't eat on account of the husband or Zacherish. Says Rabbi Nosson she could. Why mention the child? Says the Gemara, Shavak Lula Rabbanim. Adam Asaimi Milsayu. Out of deference, out of dignity, out of respect to the Rabbanim, Rabbi Nosson allowed them to finish what they were saying. They covered all the halachas with the child and everything, and then Vahada Palagalayo, and then he went ahead and said, look, Rabbi Yisai, I disagree fundamentally with your Shita. I hold that once she's married, even if he's a cherish, she can have truma. Irrespective of whether or not there's a child here. If that's the case, if that's where he's coming from, then again the brisa should have been structured differently. Listening, the brisa should say, Meis haben eino yecheles. Rav Nosson omer yecheles. You see, the brisa starts with the case of she married the cherish. Okay, no truma. That's the Rabban. No yod lo ben. She has a child. She can have her truma. Then the Brisa says, look, the child passes away. Now who's speaking? We said Rav Nosson is waiting for the Chacham to finish presenting their position. So who's speaking? It's the Chachamim, right? What do the Chachamim hold? Meis haben, she has to stop eating because she was only eating because of the child. Right? That's their shita. She's not eating because of the husband, only because of the child. Child's no longer here, she has to stop. So shouldn't the Brisa say it that way? Husband doesn't feed. Child does feed. Child's not here. Stop. That's the Chachamim. And then Rav Nosson will say, okay, are you finished? Okay, I have what to say. She can eat because of the husband. Right? You should come all at the end. If that's the way it's structured, if that's the way it's being discussed, if he's waiting for them to finish, listening, the Brisa should say like this. Meisa ben eino yechelas. The Chachamim speak about her being able to eat on account of the child. If he's not here, she has to stop. And then comes Rav Nosson and says, look, I have what to say. Rav Nosson omer yechelas. She can eat because of the husband. So why does Rav Nosson come before the Chacham? It should be the other way. Finish the Chacham and come back to Rav Nosson. Kasha, we have it as a kasha. It's a good point. Amar v'amr. Homil, so the following halacha. Amalan Rav Sheshes was presented to us by Rav Sheshes. Vanerinu la'ainin. And he enlightened us. Rashi says, "V'hayir einenu," like "V'hayir einenu v'serasech." You know, the famous story with the Rabbi Simcha that were sameach. They were sitting some rabbanim and they had shver kasha. So somebody heard him. He was davening. He said, "You know, Hashem, give me avas haTorah. Give me avas haTorah." You would expect me to daven to Hashem for siyata d'shmaya, for clarity, for a deeper perspective. No, Hashem, give me siyata d'shmaya to love Torah. And he explained, because when you love something, then you understand it. When a child's kvetching, the mother who loves the child understands what he means. Vanerinu la'ainin masnisen, give us hayreinu. Help us be connected. Help us really understand and appreciate. So he told us a halacha, and then he brought us a raya. He supported from the Mishnah. What was the halacha? Firstly, what's the halacha? Eishes Yisrael shenensa. A woman married to a Yisrael, not to a Kohen, a regular Yisrael shenensa, who experienced a forced interaction with a strange man. The halacha is, Afal Pisha Materis Labala. She is certainly mutter to stay with her husband. Rashi brings the pasuk, it says, V'hilo netfasa asur. If she was not grabbed, meaning she did it willingly, she's asur, but if it was a forced experience, of course she's mutter. There's no question. But psula lakuna, it disqualifies her from marrying a kohen down the line. Kohanim have higher standards, more delicate, more sensitive, and even an oinus with Neishes Ish disqualifies her from further marrying a kohen. That's the halacha that Rav Sheshes taught us, a chiddush. V'tana. Tuna means our Tana. Our Tana taught it to us as well in our Mishnah. Mishnah says, "V'chein abba al achas mikol aroyes amois b'Torah, oy psules." So Mishnah speaks about all types of physical interactions, and then says, "Look, just as these halachas apply to Yivam, it applies to arayis as well, oy psules, or if it's pasal kahuna, a grusha marrying a kohen, etc." The same concepts apply there as well. My v'chein. What are we trying to apply here? What are we trying to copy over? My love. Should we not assume it's going on loishna b'shoigig, v'loishna b'mezid, loishna b'oines, loishna b'ratzin? All these types of interactions, whether shoigig, mezid, oines, or ratzin, have the same impact. Uktani pasla. And it says that it's going to disqualify from marrying a kohen. So you see clearly that even an oinus experience impacts her kahuna status. Lo, that's not the point of the Mishnah. My v'chein, when it says v'chein, it's in reference to one point, not oinus. Ahara, that limited physical interaction. And we're speaking that it was done b'ratzain, willingly. She's a zayna. Who's to say that oinus would have the same effect? Asks the Gemara. Ahara de man. Who are you trying to include? What are you saying? V'chein, that hara applies here as well. What's here? What circumstance? Ilem arayis, all those arayis interactions. Just as a yevama has a din ha'ara, limited contact effects, here as well by arayis has value. Lemehima, do you mean to say that arayis yalfinam yevama? Arayis will learn from yevama with respect to this halacha. Adra, just the opposite. Yevama yalfinam arayis. If anything, Yevama learns from Arayis. The Ikar Hara of Arayis Ksiv. The concept of Hara was taught by Arayis, as we had yesterday. Yevama learns from there, not us from Yevama. Elamai v'chein, rather v'chein means Ashlei Kedar, Kedar Arayis. Come to tell you, just as a Yevama is acquired by way of Bia, whether regular or irregular, likewise, by Arayis, it also has significance. Again, Adrab, just the opposite. You're learning from Yevama to Arayis, Ikar Mishkavei Isha Barayis Ksiv. The primary reference of the of equating Kedarka Shlei Kedarka through Mishkavei Ishka, the plural lashon, which accommodates both forms of interaction. That's said by Arayis. You don't need to go to Yevama to learn that. Ella mai v'chein ashlei Kedarka da Chayav Lavin. Rather, it's coming to tell you that Shlei Kedarka is applicable even by Chayav Lavin. Rashi says Almana to Kohen Gadol, etc. And that's all the Mishnah is telling you. But not necessarily are we speaking about an oines situation, and therefore it's not a writer of Sheshes. Amarava, on the topic of oines by an Eishes Kohen, here comes a chiddush. Eishes Kohen shenansa, a Kohen's wife, who had this forced experience. Bala loika aleo mishum zayna. If the husband holds on to her, he's not allowed to. In fact, he gets malchus. She's considered a zayna. That's a tremendous chiddush, even though it was ba'oines, due to his heightened sensitivity. We treat her as a zayna with respect to staying married with this kohen. Mishum zayna in the you. Do you mean to say it's only zayna? That's it? Mishum tu'malai? But no more. We don't consider her to be the saita, which has the which is labeled as that. She's labeled as tamim. Rashi brings the pasuk, which we actually discussed back in Afir Aleph. Achrei asher hu tamoa. We learned the rabbi's saita shenivala. And the pasuk says, once the saita was mazana, she may not go back to her husband. So why doesn't that apply here as well? Ema af mishum zayna. He meant both. He meant not only is she like a saita, but she's a zayna as well. Double malchus. Masav Rabbi Zeira Avakasha. Pasuk says, V'loin tfasa. This is by the saita in Parshas Nasai. The reason why she's asr is because she was not grabbed, meaning it was done with consent. She committed znus with consent. V'loin tfasa asura. And the diuk is, we imply from here that if it was done without consent, who's done forcefully, hanitfasa muteris, doesn't affect her status with her husband. That's typical, that's standard, that's conventional, that's by Eishes Yisrael. But since it says Vehi, she, that indicates that there's something else out there. We have a similar situation elsewhere where she doesn't get this break. Even if it was done forced, it was Einis. She's Asur Be'ezoi. Zu, what are we speaking about? Zu Eishes Kohen, a wife of a Kohen, who is affected even by an Einis. Now, V'lav abo machlal aseh. We know that when we draw a lav, we draw an iser from an aseh, such as over here. A regular isha who is forced to do an avir, she's mutter. Right? It's a positive statement. We draw from there that otherwise, if she's a kohenes, an isha's kohen, she's asur. It's a lav coming from an aseh. It's not treated like a lav. It doesn't have malchus. So how could rabbis say that there's malchus? I'm a rabbi, I'll explain to you. HaKoil hoyu b'chlal zoyna. Every isha who deviates, whether it's beratzon, whether it's via a forced experience, it's still a deviation. That's the fact. Right? So the default assumption is that even Einis is defined as Iznus. Now, when the Torah specifies, when the Torah goes ahead and elaborates by the Eshes Yisrael that you should know, that if it was done ba'inus, it's mutter. She's mutter to her husband. That's the exception to the rule. That's the exception. Michlal the Eshes Kohen, kaima. That leaves the Kohen where she was. The starting point was all experiences are considered znus, and all nashim involved are considered zaynes. The Torah exempts an Eshes Yisrael, fine. But Eshes Kohen remains as is. She's called a zayna with respect to her continued marriage with her husband, and therefore you get malchus. That explains the malchus. There's a beautiful Rashi here to the left, a Shas Rashi. Rashi here is about 4 or 5 lines up. Rashi explains the deeper meaning in this Gemara. Right? So Kohen may not involve himself with a Zayna. What is a Zayna? V'stam Zayna hainu mina efes, tachas bal. Shetaso ma'achar bal l'zorm. The true definition is deviation. She deviated. V'zu, and in this case, even though it was an Einis, it was a forced experience. Afal gav denansa, we understand, that's not her fault, we're not blaming her. However, Gabi Kohen, like Polag Rachmana ben Einis ben Notzen. A Kohen, due to his heightened sensitivity, he has higher standards. So although it's not her fault at all, but he can't stay with her. Kidgamrina, as we learned from the pasuk of Elon et Fasa, the word he is a miyut, mashma. He, an Eshes Yisrael, has this exception. Hu diyesh chiluk bei nitfasa la nitfasa. Over there, there's a difference between nitfas and not nitfas. But Eshes Kohen and chiluk by Kohen, there's no difference. It's interesting. The Marik has a chiddush. He says, based on this concept, it'll come out that an isha who thought it's mutter to deviate, to interact with somebody else, she'll become asa to her husband. And he says, why? Because it's not a question of whether she deliberately was trying to do the isser, even if she thought it was mutter, but she deviated. She was mezana. She was toya from her husband. She was soita. Rashi Chumash, I think, says that. That soita means she deviated. She strayed. So if it's done by Einis, it doesn't affect her status vis-a-vis Yisrael. But if it was done willingly, even though she mistakenly thought that it's okay, that's called a deviation. She strayed, and she'll be usher to her husband, even a Yisrael. It's a chiddush to Marik. I think it's brought down in Ramon and Shulchan Aruch. It's also all based on this concept that it's deviation, it's straying. It's not necessarily the Isser per se. It's turning your back on your husband, so to speak. It's betraying his trust. And the Chiddush is that by a kohen, even if it was ba'oines, that's also considered a deviation to the point that she's usher on her husband. Continues the Gemara. So this was version number 1. The Rabbi says there's a double malchus by a kohen who holds on to an isha who's involved in an oines. There's zayna and there's tumah. There's only one. Eishes kohen shenansa. An eishes kohen who had this experience. Bala loikalem shem tumah, only on account of tumah. She's a saita, but not znus won't give the zayna will not generate a new malchus. B'shem tumah in only on account of tumah. B'shem zayna loy, not on account of that title. Alma ba'oines like karina be zayna. According to this version, no. An oines is not a zayna. He doesn't agree with the whole concept. The fact is it's ba'oines, and therefore zayna does not kick in. Mas Rabbi Zera Avakasha, how can you say that there's any malchus at all? V'loin etfasa asura. We have the pasuk. If an isha was involved in znus willingly, she's asur to her husband, and we learn hana etfasa muteres. If it was done b'oines, she's muter. That's only by the Yisrael. V'yeshlach hacheros. We have a different woman. Shava b'shen etfasa. Even though it was done b'oines, asura shiri becomes asur. Be'ezoi, who's the adzu? Eishes kayin, right? And this is a lav which is being drawn from an asay, v'lav avomachal asay, which has the din of an asay. It's not a straight out lav; it's a lav which is drawn out of a positive statement. Hana tfasa muter, so it doesn't have the din of a lav, and it doesn't have malchus. How can you say there's malchus? Amar Rabba, I'll explain to you, and this is similar to before. Just instead of speaking about zayna, we speak about tumah. All situations were really technically included in that pasuk describing an isha who strayed, an isha who was involved with a strange man. She becomes tamei, and she may not go back to her husband. So all situations were included. Even oines should be included. But then the pasuk comes and elaborates and explains that by Neshes Yisrael we take exception to an oines only if it was done without tfisa, meaning it was not for us. She's asur, but otherwise she's mutter. That's the exception to the rule. But by a kohen, we don't have this exception. Mechlal de'eshes kohen, kedekayim, she just stands as is, and it's considered tamei, notwithstanding the fact that it was ba'inus. Okay, so we learned a great chiddush. An eshes ish was involved with a strange man. If it's be ratzon, willingly, she becomes asur, irrespective of whether she's married to a kohen or Yisrael. If it was done ba'inus, well, an Eishes Yisrael is unaffected. An Eishes Kohen is, to what extent? We have two versions. A single malchus, or even a double malchus, perhaps. Continues the Mishnah. Almana Kohen Gadol. Suppose there's an inappropriate marriage here, an almana marrying a Kohen Gadol, a grusha or a chalutza marrying a Kohen Hedyot. What happens when it comes to eating truma? Suppose she happens to be a daughter of a kohen who was allowed to eat truma up until this point. Or if she was a daughter of a Yisrael, but she's going into the marriage with a kohen. Could she start eating truma? And Rashi brings here that we're going according to the Shita that holds that even erusin, even engagement, not today's engagement, but the Kedushin engagement, that kinyan allows the Isha to have truma. Right? We're following that Shita right now. What happens if it's an Isser that's being done? It's a grusha marrying a kohen. Lo yochle betruma. In either one of these cases, she may not eat truma. Why? Rashi brings that it's midrabanan because she's awaiting marriage with a pasuk. She's anticipating a bia psula. That's Shitas Tanakama, which happens to be Rab Meir. Rab Lezer, Rab Shimon Machshir, they say she can have her truma. Until marriage, she's not affected. She's not blemished by the relationship with him. It's only a kinyan. She's free to have her truma. What happens if they disengage? Nis armalu or nis garshu? These fellows die or they divorce them. Well, it depends. Minan is soon. If it's after marriage, or in which case they're already blemished and tainted, they become chalolim. Psulis, they can no longer have the truma, even if they're really from a kohen family. She's a bas kohen. She can't go back and have her truma. and she can't marry a kohen either. Mina eris and ksheris, but if it was only from the engagement point, she got engaged and then got divorced, got engaged and then got widowed. At that point, she's not yet a chalala, she didn't have a physical interaction with him, and therefore, they're kasha l'kuhuna. Tanya, let's go back to the first shaila. We're going to debate our point. Amar Rab Meir says to the other Tanoim, I'll prove my point. That what? That an isha who's awaiting marriage with these fellows may not eat her truma. Kal v'chomer, through a kal v'chomer. Uma kiddushi rishus, ein machilin. Look, you find that even a Yisrael, who's Makadosh Bas Yisrael, there's no Avera involved, it's rishus, it's optional, meaning it's perfectly acceptable. Ein machilin, they can't feed them truma. Kedushi Avera lekoshkin, of course, if it's involving an Avera, how can you allow truma to be fed? He should not have the ability to give her truma. Nor should she eat truma on account of her father was a kohen. She's in the middle of a Avera relationship. Amr loy, they tell him like this. How can you compare? Loy, no. Im amrs b'kedushi rishus. Of course, a regular Yisrael cannot be feeding the arusa truma. He doesn't have the ability to feed her elsewhere, meaning even if he marries her, he can't feed her. He's not a kohen. How could you compare it to the kohen who's engaged with the grusha? In this case, perhaps he can feed her. Because he can feed her as soon as he marries. Perhaps not in this case, but typically he can feed his married wife if she's a kosher. So he has the ability to give truma. So why shouldn't he feed her at this point? It's still pre-marriage. It's still pre-being tainted and blemished by him. It's kinyan kaspa, Rashi says. She's his acquisition. Why can't he feed her truma? Okay, to be continued by tomorrow. Okay, let's do a quick chazara on today's daf. We discussed all these sort of deficient types of biyos, shogeg and oines. We had a machlekes Rabbi Shmuel and two versions in the machlekes. According to version 1, if she's coming off marriage, after having been married to Reuven, now she's standing awaiting Yibum, and this fellow does this biyah shogeg v'oines, all agree it's fully impactful. He's kind of her completely because he's simply taking over what was already there. If it's only Mina Erison, in which case she was only partially connected to Reuven, and now Shimon does this partial Yibum, so to speak, Rav says, who cares? Rav says there's a Yibum. She's his wife for all practical purposes. Where Shmuel says only Dinei Yibum get affected. Nothing else. According to version number 2, if she's coming off Nesuin, that's when we have the machlekes. Rav says it's complete kinyan. Shmuel says it's just a partial kinyan. If she's coming from Eris, and all agree, it only activates Dinei Yibum. Who eats truma? What type of wife? If she's an arusa, Minatorah she can eat, but not midirabbanan. If she's an nesua, she can. She's married to a cherish, who became a cherish, after kedushin before nesuin. According to the Rabbana, she may not eat truma, but geyser, there's a gzera, because this might lead to a cherish be mekadosh isha and feeding her, which he can't because he cannot make a kinyan. Rabbi Nassan's not concerned about this gzera. Okay, we have the Ishes Ish, who was involved in oines. She's mutter to marry Yisrael, but not a kohen. There are consequences. She's considered, there's a lav, there's malchus for tumah, and perhaps even for zayna. An Isha who's involved with psulei kuhuna, right, a grusha to a kohen, etc. If she's already married to him, she becomes apostle from truma. If it's only erison, we have a machlokes. Rameir says she can have her truma. Reb Shimon say, Meir Tanakama says no truma, whereas Reb Shimon say she may still have her truma until marriage. All the best to you and hatzlacha always.